Hi, Year 12. So this is the Great Gatsby chapter 5 and 6 summary with some discussion questions and some sort of explanation of the chapter that we're going through. I will also be going through a character, Daisy. So yeah, let's just begin straight off the bat. So these are your discussion questions. I might just move my camera up a little bit. Oops, sorry. So these are my discussion questions. I would like you guys to answer these for class so that we are ready to discuss them when you finish watching all of it. We'll be watching this video in class, and then that way we can launch straight into it. So this shouldn't take you too long as it is a fairly quick PowerPoint. They are a bit more focused on Gatsby and Daisy and their total interactions, but that's because these two chapters are really focused on them. It's more about Daisy in this one and her interactions with Gatsby and why Gatsby feels the way he does, things like that. We also are going to look at Dan Cody and why he is so important to Gatsby's story. So this is your chapter summary. Hopefully you've already read through all of this, but just so you know, this is where we see Daisy and Gatsby interacting. He's all nerves. He's really nervous to see Daisy again for obvious reasons if you finish the book. But it is a very awkward sort of thing that goes on. So Nick is the observer here and he doesn't actually know everything that's happening, which again makes him a questionable narrator. We actually don't know what was discussed. All we know is that Gatsby was incredibly happy and Daisy was crying. He also slips up in this chapter because he says that he had to earn the money that he gets for this house, and previously in the story he said that he inherited it, so it's one of the first times he's lied. Now, as you go through this chapter, you realize that this entire house is for Daisy, so it becomes that love story in this chapter right here. He also keeps a large frame picture of Dan Cody. Now, we don't actually know why Dan Cody is so important, but he says that he's an old friend. So keep that in mind when you're answering your discussion questions. In chapter 6, it actually explains it further, so I'll just launch straight into that. So chapter 6 is a bit longer, and there is a lot more to it. We find out who Jay Gatsby was. He was actually born James Gatz. Now, this is where his identity becomes completely morphed. He is no longer that man, but he's a poor person who, in his mind, didn't deserve Daisy, which is why he's changed everything about him. Dan Cody was his best friend who drank too much and died. Now, Gatsby in the film, while he throws these lavish parties, doesn't actually drink himself. So it's a very interesting sort of relationship that they have. Now, according to Cody's will, Gatsby was supposed to inherit the money, but his mistress kept it for himself. We actually aren't supposed to know this at this point in the story. Nick inserts this into the story at that point. So it's kind of like that sort of plot twist. And again, does this show him as a good narrator? Because he's kind of given away the end of the story before the beginning. So that's a really sort of interesting dynamic that Nick has when talking about Gatsby. It also changes the character of Gatsby, because this chapter shows that Gatsby wasn't always a important man. He was someone who's had to work from the bottom up, again showing that American dream, and again showing how easily identity is changed in this sort of time period. This is where, and I'm talking to the people who are doing studies on Gatsby and a study on identity, this is a really important chapter, so I highly recommend you read it in order to get the quotes that you need for your essay. Remember, you need quite a few of them. The dynamic in this party is completely different to the others, and it comes back down to the fact that Gatsby has changed. He now has the woman, because Daisy, as we find out in this chapter, actually does love him. So he thinks that, and he says so, Nick says in this, that he wanted nothing less than for Daisy to go to Tom and say, I never loved you, because he loved Daisy. And he knew that Daisy loved him back. But this is where we see a complication in Daisy's character. She doesn't choose the man that she loves. Okay, she married the man that had the money, that could keep up her lifestyle. Now, there is a specific reason that F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote like this, and it has a lot to do with his wife Zelda. He did honestly think that women thought like this. And Nick is very much the shoulder for Gatsby to cry on in this sort of scene. He's the confidant. Nick tells Gatsby that he can't repeat the past, which we know from all modern TV shows that this is a very true thing. You can't repeat what's already happened. And Gatsby doesn't believe him. He thinks that, and it is kind of his mistake to make, but he thinks that love is enough. And in this case, it really isn't. Oh gosh, that slide hasn't worked. Okay, we'll just leave that one for now, and I will give you quotes during class. Now, this is the character analysis of Daisy. Now, these are her personality traits and her circumstances. Now, I would highly recommend if you're doing a character analysis to do this as well. And this makes up a lot of who she is. However, there is one personality trait I haven't included in there, and that's because it's up to you guys to decide. Is Daisy a smart character? Because of the way that she plays the game. She, in a thing like Game of Thrones, she is basically so much better than everyone. She understands the world that she's living in and she wants to change it. Changing it isn't the right way of stating that. It's more that she knows how she's meant to act and how she has to live in this world. She is kind of the, I would say she's pretty much the Sansa Stark a little bit, in the sense that she just wants pretty things in the world. She doesn't really care about the consequences of her actions. She wants to have all the beautiful things and have the perfect life and the perfect marriage, and she understands that her place is to be that golden girl or that it girl, and she has to keep up those appearances, so she marries Tom. Now, why is Daisy's character described as goals by some people? So Daisy's voice makes her untouchable, and there's a quote right here that says it. If you're doing a character analysis on Daisy, that's a very important quote. And she wants to feel loved and cared for. She's constantly looking for Tom. Even when he left the room for a minute, she's uneasy. And she acts like a woman who is very much in love, or even just in lust with him. She needs his presence with her, because I think that Daisy puts a lot of emphasis on her self-worth given how men treat her. So Tom leaving the room, leaving her by herself, that makes her feel worthless. When he comes back, when he's in her presence, she is delighted. She's completely happy again. She chooses money over love, and is okay with a man telling her what to do. Example, she married Tom to begin with. And she is that beautiful little fool that she describes her daughter being, or what she wants her daughter to be. She is the siren of this story. She is unattainable to Gatsby, and it isn't a coincidence that, spoiler alert, Gatsby dies in a pool. If you think about a siren and what a siren does, she draws in a man to their death, and this is what Daisy does to Gatsby. She isn't really, I wouldn't say, a great example for women in the 21st century, but she does play this game better than the boys do, and she has to in order to survive. So, the question I'm asking you guys is, why is Davy even interesting? So why is she a character to watch? Why is she someone that people find so fascinating? And I'd like you to write 2 or 3 sentences on this. That's this video, I think. I don't think I have another slide after this. It is a very quick one because these 2 chapters, while important to read, require you guys to do some thinking of your own. In terms of Gatsby and Daisy and their relationship, it all relates back to the discussion questions. So I'm going to leave this with you. Remember that we'll be discussing this in class. You should know the drill by now. And I will see you guys soon.